Alrighty. Welcome in, everybody. Offsetting Penalties podcast. We are back. Another episode. The usual Mondays, Gametime Grech. Zach is in the house with me. Normally, Zach, we're here Monday. There's football games fresh in our mind, whether it's Monday Night Football or the playoff games on these Sundays. No football this week unless you want to count the Pro Bowl tomorrow, which isn't even an actual Pro Bowl anymore. That's a whole nother tangent in itself. But this was a little off week before the Super Bowl. But this week on Thursday, the NFL honors, and I thought it was only right if you hop on and we give our picks for MVP, Offensive Player of the Year, and all the awards beforehand. And I'm excited to get into it, brother.
Excited indeed. Sorry about this, battling a bad sinus infection, but you know what? Hey, you got to stop. The grind doesn't stop. So, and this idea, I think this award ceremony is going to be very star-studded, man. And it's one that we won't see Patrick Mahomes in. We won't see other people in Lamar Jackson. We won't see usual suspects in the same categories that we think that usually win these awards. So it's a brand new one. Again, that's what makes it more competitive and more kind of entertaining to watch. And football has been that all year long.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And, I have loved what the NFL is doing. It typically feels like the Pro Bowl and the NFL honors are like their own separate things. This year, they're doing all of it in the Bay Area. Everything is like together, one operation, which I think is good for the brand. This year, they introduced the Protector of the Year award, the best offensive lineman. We didn't give our picks for that because me and you are by no means offensive line experts. But we cover the rest of the awards. We'll talk MVP, Offensive Player of the Year, Defensive Player of the Year, Coach of the Year, and then touch on some at the end, and we'll get out of there. Before we do, if you're not following on the Instagram, follow on the Instagram. Follow Gametime Grech at Gametime Grech on Instagram. Subscribe on YouTube. Follow the Spotify. You know the drill by now. And without further ado, let's get into it. And our MVP picks, not much suspense here. Both of us are going Matthew Stafford as the most valuable player of the year. The Rams, 12 wins this year. Stafford, late into his career, had maybe his best season statistically. Obviously made it to the NFC Championship, and just an unbelievable year for a 37-year-old who coming into the year had a back injury, and a lot of people thought Jimmy Garoppolo was going to start for the Rams. Didn't happen. Matthew Stafford, most valuable player of the year.
Yeah, no, Matthew Stafford, man, I think he put the Rams on his back this year, man. I mean, credit to him and Puka Nacua, obviously Sean McVay, but like you said, Matthew Stafford had a career year, almost 5,000 yards passing to be exact, is 4,707, and 46 touchdowns to 8 interceptions. And the guy had a crazy QBR rating of 109.2, man. That's insane. That's absolutely insane. And 65% completion percentage. So as long as you're around the 60 mark, that means you're doing something right, you know.
Sure.
And I think that's what Matthew Stafford's brought. There were some great performances this whole season. I think the most notable one for me was the one against the Jacksonville Jaguars. 5 touchdowns, 182 yards, nothing super flashy, but he destroyed a defense that was pretty reckless the whole year. And then pretty crazy. And then as the Seahawks too, that performance I think solidified everything for me, because 457 yards passing against a secondary that's been absolutely amazing, and threw some 3 touchdowns there. So that's why I think Matthew Stafford's the MVP. And it's hard to throw a lot of touchdowns in the red zone, and he just did that. So.
For sure. The other person people floated around is obviously Drake May, and Drake May, unbelievable season, but in terms of pure stats, nowhere close to Stafford in terms of the passing numbers. And I get Drake May brings in a little bit of rushing, but 46 touchdowns, 4,700 yards. Like, he was on the cusp of a 5,050 season. He didn't get it, obviously, but he was on the cusp of it. That Jaguars game you're talking about, that was a London game without Puka Nacua, and he went ballistic in that game, and that was against a defense that at the time, early in the year, we didn't think much of Jacksonville at that point, and now we look back at it and we're like, holy crap, he did that against Jacksonville. And then that Thursday night game, granted they lost to Seattle, but unbelievable 450 yards against one of the league's best defenses, a team that's playing in the Super Bowl. It's unbelievably impressive what he's done. I think the addition of Devontae Adams really helped him a lot, because I think, if you're looking at this from a fantasy football point of view, Matthew Stafford, no one's ever questioned how good Matthew Stafford is. But in fantasy football, you'd think you'd be able to start him, but for years you couldn't, because he didn't have the touchdowns. And it feels like this year he got himself really the first true red zone threat of his entire career, probably since Calvin Johnson in Detroit and Devontae Adams. I think that really elevated his game a lot. And, it helps. We'll talk a little bit about Puka Nacua here soon, but it just feels like every time you're a wide receiver one on a Matthew Stafford offense, whether it's going back to Megatron, going to Cooper Kupp in his Triple Crown year, or Puka Nacua this year, it's just Matthew Stafford is the passing threat in this National Football League. And in a year where a lot of these young up and comers, these guys who we think of as the future of the NFL, Mahomes, Burrow, Lamar, all had down years, injuries, or whatever, it's the guy who's been around as long as anyone besides Aaron Rodgers who really was the cream of the crop this year. You are muted, my friend. You are muted in Discord, my friend. All good. All good.
Drake May is literally going to win a lot more MVP awards. He might even get more Super Bowl trips for sure. I think people forget that when you're young, you want to produce early, but at the end of the day, he's done a lot. And I like how you put about Devontae Adams, Matthew Stafford. I think I like Puka Nacua on this stuff. What's really impressive to Drake, man, I don't want to give any discredit, man. I think the fact that he hadn't really not much wide receiver help. I mean, Stephon Diggs is past his prime. We can easily say that. But I think the fact is that Drake May from year one to year two was monumentally better in every single stat category, and he really understood his offense. And he looks like an NFL quarterback that will be an elite status. And I think he's already starting to creep up there. Maybe the numbers are not going to always be the craziest, but he's very clutch, and he doesn't really turn over the ball interceptions wise. Yeah, fumbles, we can get into that later.
Yeah.
Or no, I'm not even going to get into that. But at the end of the day, he does take care of the ball, and that's why he's going to be playing in Santa Clara this Sunday.
For sure. Drake May, unbelievably. I very much considered, for the sake of having a little bit of variety, I very much considered making Drake May my MVP. You already had Stafford there, but I had to look at myself and be like, no, I think Stafford's the MVP. What the Rams did this season, it was undeniable. They were, they had some holes in the roster that were masked by Matthew Stafford. The run game, I get Kyron Williams and Blake Corum had good seasons, but I really think that McVay offense is at its best when you have an elite runner like we saw Todd Gurley a while ago. They didn't have that. The tight end room, you had Colby Parkinson and young Terrence Ferguson and Higbee, but it's not like they didn't have any true tight ends. It felt like just like a group contribution. And yeah, you have Puka Nacua, you have Devontae Adams. That's going to help you a lot. But I feel like Matthew Stafford, some of the holes in this offense, he was able to mask them very, very much. And just an unbelievable year to be, 37 years old, to have been in the league for this long. You took all those hits in Detroit for so many years. You come to LA and you're in year 5 or year 6 here in LA, and to still be this dominant, it's a testament to, like these quarterbacks, these quote unquote ageless wonders. Brady was one of them. You could say Rodgers is another of them. These quarterbacks that are just going late into their careers and still winning MVP, still slinging it. And it's just that processing ability that younger quarterbacks don't really have. The guys like Stafford and Rodgers, and we even saw Phillip Rivers this year. They just have it because they grew up in a different era of football. They started their career in a different era of football, and it's clear that when they have the elite processing skills like a Stafford does, it just makes all the difference in the world. So if you have any last things to say on Stafford, please do. If not, we can move on to an award we disagree on.
Last thing I want to say for Stafford is what's next? My bad. Excuse me. Muted our live. But yeah, what is next for Matthew Stafford? Because at the end of the day, your team's not going to be the same. Defensively, we'll see if they get better, if they get worse. And Devontae Adams is aging. And yeah, so I think for him, battles back injuries. Is he going to have a productive season like this? You can't get much better than what he's gotten, But is he going to get a Super Bowl, or is this the ceiling that Stafford has hit in his career? That's what I say.
Yeah, and there's been Sean McVay has been a little coy about it if Stafford's coming back or not. Like it is very much in the air right now. He's late into his career. He's been going on these deep playoff runs with the Rams. Those are extra games on the body, extra games. But remarkable what he did this year. And if he does retire, which I don't think he will, and I think most people don't think he will, this would be an amazing way to go out on an MVP. Obviously not a Super Bowl, but unbelievable. And he's really, since he came to the Rams, kind of cemented himself a little bit as a Hall of Famer, right? Like I think that's very much a discussion now. I've seen a big Eli Manning versus Matthew Stafford debate, which is such a random debate, but it's true because Eli had those two unbelievable Super Bowl years. The rest of his career was so-so. Matthew Stafford had all those Detroit years that like it wasn't his fault, but he wasn't winning playoff games. He wasn't getting any accolades or anything. And then he comes to the Rams and all of a sudden, boom, here's a Super Bowl and boom, here's an MVP award. Like truly remarkable for him to be doing this in the later half of his career. So Matthew Stafford is both of our MVP picks and more likely than not come NFL honors on Thursday. He'll probably be the National Football League MVP. That's at least what most people think. The one that's a little in the air of the big time awards is Offensive Player of the Year. And that's where me and you disagree here. I am sticking with the Rams. I think Puka Nacua is the Offensive Player of the Year. Zach, and I know you're muted right now, Jackson Smith and Jigba, you're Offensive Player of the Year. Talk to me. I mean, it's as close. CMC's in that discussion. It's JSN and Puka. What gave you the edge to JSN a little bit? What you've seen from the third-year wide receiver out of Ohio State?
I just want to be controversial, man. I think, look, Puka Nacua is definitely going to be probably the favorite to win, but there was only a couple games where JSN was under 100 yards. But when he had his performances, man, we're talking 162, we're talking 132, we're talking 113 receiving yards, 153 against the Rams. I mean, the guy has gotten 10 touchdowns, and this offense was literally on the back of JSN and Sam Darnold throwing him the ball, period. Puka Nacua had another receiver. I'm not going to say Cooper Kupp is not the guy with JSN, but Cooper Kupp is not near the level of Devontae Adams right now in his age bracket, right? And that's where it kind of separates me. It's like the offensive player of the year, offensively, if they're not on the field, they will be crumbled. That's why I even think Christian McCaffrey might even be just a little bit higher up than these two. I mean, but I'm going to pick JSN because this is year what? Two? This is year
Year
two of his
three.
career now. Year
Year
three?
three,
I always
yeah.
say that. If you get tripped up, year two, year three, it doesn't matter. The
Yeah,
idea is this guy in 3 years has literally become one explosive receiver. Triple coverage him, do anything, he's different. Period. But
yeah.
Christian McCaffrey has definitely done some things this year that I don't think any running back will ever do.
For sure. For sure. I mean, CMC is definitely in that discussion. What probably hurt CMC, and I think he's got the third best odds right now to win it, is the fact that CMC wasn't super efficient on the ground this year. It was one of his worst years in terms of yards per carry. It was just he was so influential in the receiving game, and he was just such a workhorse that he ended up, carrying the Niners offense a lot of this year. I really do think this is a two-man race between Puka and JSN. I think right now JSN is actually slightly the odds-on favorite, and if JSN wins it, I have zero issues with that. For me, what makes Puka just so unbelievable is his stats were about par for par with JSN. We're talking 1,700 yards, 10 touchdowns. What gives me the slight edge with Puka was one, he got knocked out of a game early in Baltimore and then missed the entire Jacksonville game. So really, we're looking at almost a 15-game season. And for him to have 1,700 yards, 10 touchdowns through the air, not to mention a couple touchdowns on the ground, is truly remarkable. And if you want to get into skill sets, JSN is very much unguardable in terms of man-to-man coverage. He's so shifty, out of the slot wherever. He's so good. He runs a beautiful go route, which is such an underrated thing in today's NFL. What makes Puka so good is he's not the separator that JSN is. He had one of the best contested catch rates in NFL history this year. I mean, there was never a time, if you saw the ball coming towards number 12, you just assumed it was being caught, even if it was the most unbelievable circus catches. In an aspect of Puka Nakua's game that I think gets love, but not enough love in terms of the Offensive Player of the Year conversation, is he is a phenomenal run blocker, man. And that speaks to his physicality as a wide receiver, right? He will, a lot of times you'll see McVay do the motion where they cheat Nakua to the line of scrimmage, and he'll like go through the B gap or through the C gap as a lead blocker on run plays. And I just think that's an unbelievable. Now you don't want to be doing that because you're putting your stud all pro wide receiver at risk of getting hurt. But it's just unbelievable that like they can do the things they do with him in terms of run blocking and actually out wide. The screen game, he was the best yards after catch receiver this year. Like he's just got such a unique skill set you don't see many receivers have in terms of the physicality and the yards after catch. Like it's truly remarkable. So I give the slight edge to Puka Nacua for those reasons. But JSN, unbelievable. First year, you get DK Metcalf out of the equation. You get Tyler Lockett out of the equation. You get him in this Kubiak offense, and it just feels like him and Sam Darnold were clicking from game one all the way until the NFC Championship, in which JSN probably had his best game of the year. Now, playoffs don't count towards Offensive Player of the Year in these awards voting, but for the sake of our show, I think they do. And I think it was unbelievable what he did in that game, and Puka had a great game too. So for me, I slightly lean Puka, but in no means am I saying JSN doesn't deserve it. Either way, if it goes to one of these two guys, I think they deserve it. And it's just a privilege that these guys got to play each other 3 times this year, play in the same division. And hey, that third candidate, CMC, was also in the same division. Kind of crazy to speak to the NFC West, how the 3 top Offensive Player of the Year candidates were all in the same division, played each other a total of 7 or 8 times.
Yeah, I mean, no disagreement here to you. I think both of those receivers have literally marked themselves top 10 fantasy players next year.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. You're taking Puka at the 101, I would imagine. Puka, I didn't win the fantasy championship in my home league, but he got me very much to the championship, and he was a force to be reckoned with. And the team I lost to had JSN. So, I mean, that should tell you something about those two guys. And the whole conversation, to wrap this up on Offensive Player of the Year, the whole conversation is best wide receiver in the league. It's Jamar Chase. It's Justin Jefferson. These two guys, it's not a two-headed race anymore. It's 4. And it's Puka Nacua, JSN, plus Jefferson and Chase. If you want to keep Jefferson and Chase after their kind of down years, I have no problem with that, what they've done these past few years. But these two guys are on their level. They proved it this year. Different skill sets, but still equally as dominant on the field. And it's a great era for wide receivers right now. I think the wide receiver outlook in the NFL is in a much better spot than it was a year ago or even 2 years ago. So Defensive Player of the Year, this is another one we're in agreement. And you can't give it to anyone else besides Myles Garrett. It is a shame that he was on the Browns and was losing as many games as he did this year. Sets the single season sack record. The dude is been in the league for a while, but just like Matthew Stafford, it just feels like he's getting better with age. Myles Garrett, man, just a complete dominator and was just wreaking havoc from week 1 all the way to that final week of the year in which he broke the sack record.
He had 43 combined tackles, 17 assisted, 23 sacks. And from last year, he was consecutive for the past 2 years with 14 sacks. And then in 2021, consecutive with 16 sacks. And then 2020, 12, 10. This guy is an unbelievable monster. An absolute monster. There are only 2 defensive linemen in this world, I feel like, that are absolutely talented in this way. Aaron Donald is number 1. Myles Garrett is number 2. And I might even argue Myles Garrett can be up there. I mean, what after this people need to see with defensive linemen? Yes, the Super Bowl matters in some ways on people, but you know what? No, I agree. Is this guy's a first ballot Hall of Famer already now? First ballot Hall of Famer. He has made the Browns defense elite for what they have done. Kudos to Myles Garrett. Myles Garrett is that guy, and he is the best. Either one, top 2. I mean, people are going to say it's a hot take, but it's like I feel like he is the best defensive lineman of our generation. He is disgusting.
The only thing that makes me a little bit, that statement makes me pause a little bit, is Aaron Donald was so freaking dominant for years. But Myles Garrett is hitting those levels undoubtedly. I mean, 23 sacks in a single season. And what's crazy about that is he was like a sack and a half away from the record in like week 14, week 15. Like he had a couple games down the stretch in which he said it after that Pittsburgh game, week 17 of the year. Pittsburgh needed that game to clinch playoffs, and they lost to Cleveland. And Myles Garrett said after the game, I think they were more concerned about blocking me than they were winning the game. I think they were more concerned about me not getting that sack and breaking that record than they were winning the game. And I think that can be said for a lot of teams. This Cleveland defense was a really, really good unit this year. Jim Schwartz is a great defensive coordinator, but it all starts with 95 up front. He's so powerful. He's got so many different pass rush moves in his arsenal, not to mention how well he plays the run. He's a freak athlete. Like, he is what you want in a defensive end in 2026. You want size, athleticism, and just an arsenal to every pass rush move in the book, bull rush, spin moves, whatever you want. Myles Garrett has it, and it was unbelievable to watch. I agree with you. I would still put Aaron Donald number one because Donald did have that
Yeah.
stretch where he won like 3 defensive player of the year awards in a row or something like that. But Myles Garrett's on that level, and the big conversation this offseason with Garrett is going to be, does he force his way out of Cleveland? Because at some point, we've seen this sometimes. We see this sometimes. I think Max Crosby's in a similar boat with the Raiders. You see it with these like dominant pass rushers or dominant players on these teams that just keep losing and losing and losing. At some point, for the sake of that player, you just want them to get out of their situation just so that they can go reap the benefits of winning some rings or competing for Super Bowls. That's where Myles Garrett is, because his Browns team, they're still paying Deshaun Watson's contract. They've still got a whole lot to figure out. They hired Todd Monken as their head coach, which I wasn't a huge fan of. That didn't feel like their number one choice of a head coach hire at all. And now Jim Schwartz, their defensive coordinator, it sounds like he wants out of there. It's just Cleveland. We know how dysfunctional Cleveland is. And the only thing they've consistently had going for them is number 95. And now if number 95 leaves, it puts them in a bad spot. But for the sake of Garrett, you want him to go to another team to start winning some games and competing for rings, because this is an all-time talent being wasted on a team that's winning 5 games a year.
No, you're right. You know what? And hey, Aaron Donald, and this not whole show's about Aaron Donald versus Myles Garrett, but Aaron Donald's the defensive tackle. So, yes, I'd probably say that he's number one, but the Myles Garrett might be the greatest defensive end ever. And that's crazy to say, but I mean,
Ooh,
I know, but I'm putting it out there because his 125 and a half career sacks right now.
yeah,
Okay, Aaron Donald had 111, but he's a defensive tackle. But I'm just saying, and this guy, how I see how he is, the physicality of this era of football, you have to be fast. You can't be slow off your feet. You can't do these. He's versatile. Any quarterback that's gonna face Myles Garrett, they better know exactly where he's on the field, because if they don't know, he could put you in a body bag,
for sure.
and at the end of the day, that's where I want to say. And so yeah, I changed my statement. I still think it's controversial, but I think he is the best defensive player right now in the league.
Oh, for
And
sure.
and
Yeah.
I even think he pile up 2 more years if he keeps playing like this.
For sure. I mean, there's been my little bro is a Steelers fan, and apparently among Steelers and Browns fans, the T.J. Watt versus Myles Garrett debate has been very highly debated upon in previous years. This year, it's not even close. Like this year, even Steelers fans, even my little bro, saying, "Yeah, it's Garrett." Like you can't deny it. And granted, T.J. Watt what did partially own the single season sack record up until
Yeah.
this year. And Myles Garrett didn't just share it with Strahan like TJ Watt did. Myles Garrett completely broke it. Unbelievable year. If you're a bettor and you're betting on anyone besides Myles Garrett to win Defensive Player of the Year, you're out of your mind and you're just giving Vegas free money. It's Myles Garrett, one of the best single seasons we've seen a pass rusher have, maybe even ever, considering he broke the single season sack record. Now on to Coach of the Year. This is me and you are in disagreement here. There are a lot of names for this award. We're talking Liam Cohen, we're talking Ben Johnson, Mike McDonald, but me and you decided to go a different route. You, my friend, think it's Mike Vrabel of the New England Patriots. I, homer pick, went Kyle Shanahan of the San Francisco 49ers. Let's start with Vrabel and you. Vrabel coaches this team to the Super Bowl. They win 14 games. Everyone said an easy schedule, but they just seemed like they were just a well-oiled machine from week one all the way until the Super Bowl, which they'll be playing in here in a couple of days.
If I'm lying to myself, I'm only gonna say it because of why they got to the Super Bowl. My honest pick, but I'm gonna keep it variable, is Ben Johnson. I love Ben Johnson.
Yeah,
That is my guy, but I don't think realistically he's gonna get it. But overall, and career-wise, the Bears have sucked. Okay, the Bears have sucked
yeah.
so bad. They've been terrible. But let's go off the Patriots because I think it's the safest. I'm gonna go the safe pick here. Every other I'll be controversial every single other one, but this one's safe pick because overall his coaching career record is 68 and 48 in the regular season. Okay, and his first year with the Patriots in 2025, he literally breaks this team down, breaks it down to the bone, and says, "This is what we're gonna do. We're gonna run the ball. We're gonna do a little bit of play action. We're gonna make this team work." At first, his players, running backs wise, weren't doing the greatest. There was a time where they were like, Travion Henderson, are you going to come? Are you going to be there or not? Ramondre Stevenson had a lot of fumbling problems. They were just battling off of trying to find a run game, and it was struggling.
Yeah.
But he had a quarterback that he believed in and that he trusted in. He had an OC that has known the Patriots' culture, the scheme, and everything down to a T. And I know you already talk about Josh McDaniels. You have a lot to say off of him. I think what's really impressive is that they're 14-3 with a team that doesn't pass the ball that much. That's just gritty defense that plays hard-nosed football, defensive effort, and this guy is a defensive-minded coach. Let's make that clear.
Yeah.
Okay, he's not offensive-minded. He is a defensive-minded coach, 100%. And he's got him to the Super Bowl with that culture. And that's why they say defensive wins championships. Mike Vrabel could possibly win his first Super Bowl as a coach. And he has brought it. He doesn't have a losing record as a coach. He doesn't have a losing record as a player. This is the perfect coach that New England could have got to replace Bill Belichick. And I know there's a gap year with Jared Mayo, but Mike Vrabel, he took a year off the NFL. Can we make that statement? He took a year off of the NFL, came back, and absolutely demolished the competition. And yes, whatever they say, controversial weak schedule, yada, yada, yada. They're in the Super Bowl. Who else is in the Super Bowl? Seattle.
Right.
That's it. So that's all I got to say. Mike Vrabel, Coach of the Year for me.
Yeah, and honestly, like you talk about Ben Johnson, and Ben Johnson, like there's no wrong pick for Coach of the Year. There's like 5 or 6 guys that easily could be in the conversation. Ben Johnson, we've known about the Bears' struggles. It's not, we get the whole Patriots because they were so good with Belichick and Brady. They're coming off of back-to-back 4-win years, and he just turned a 4-win team into a 14-win team in one offseason. Give credit to Robert Kraft, give credit to the Patriots organization. They brought in some good players, but this was a guy who won games in Tennessee. He won games in Tennessee, and then they trade away his star receiver in A.J. Brown. The front office just never really gives him like an elite quarterback. Tannehill was okay, but it just felt like it wasn't his fault. He kind of got scapegoated in Tennessee. He comes to New England. They surround him with good talent, and he elevates him from 4 wins to 14 wins. It's unbelievable. My pick is Kyle Shanahan. Look, 12 wins with the amount of injuries they had is unreal. Now, whether you want to say it was because of the power plant or because of the training staff, whatever you want to say, the Niners were the most injured team in the NFL this year. No team had more cap space going towards the injured reserve than the San Francisco 49ers. And through it all, they never stopped winning, right? Every time you thought, oh my God, this injury is going to be the final straw, they came back and won a game. Right? Week 6, Fred Warner goes down, dislocates his ankle. That's the heart and soul of your defense, already without Nick Bosa. This team is screwed. The next week, they go play an Atlanta team coming off of a great win in Buffalo, and they just completely embarrass Atlanta on Sunday Night Football. Later in the year, you lose a game to Houston, you bounce back the next week and win. Every time they lost a game, they bounce back. You can even talk about Week 18 against Seattle. They lost 13-3. They come in, go to Philadelphia, knock out the defending champs in a game that George Kittle tears his Achilles. It didn't matter if it was Brock Purdy or Mac Jones. It didn't matter who was in the receiving room. It didn't matter if Trent Williams was hurt. This team was competitive in all the games they played. And ultimately, the season ended at the hands of a Seattle team that just felt like they were just out. Like no coach, no quarterback could have willed that Niners team to beat that Seattle team on that night the way it was going. I just think it's, I'm a Niner homer, so call me a homer, call me biased if you want. The other one that I was debating on was Liam Cohen. Liam Cohen in Jacksonville. This was a Jacksonville team that has been picking very, very high in recent years. It was not going well there at the end with Doug Peterson. He comes in and he makes this team that struggled last year all of a sudden the 3 seed in the AFC, and they win 12 or 13 games. So I thought that was phenomenal in its own right. I have zero problem with Mike Vrabel. I have zero problem with Ben Johnson. And honestly, I have zero problem with Mike McDonald if you want to go that route too. But I just think a lot of these coaches that get coach of the year end up getting it just because they went and they turned a team around from being bad to good, right? This Niners team, with the amount of injuries they had, should have been atrocious this year. They should have won 6 games, and they end up winning 12 and knocking off the defending champs on the road in the wild card round. I just think that speaks to the job Kyle Shanahan did. Give Robert Saleh some credit in that. Give John Lynch some credit in that. Drafting some good rookies who contributed. But I think this was, of Kyle Shanahan's 10 years in San Francisco, this was his best coaching job of those 10 years. And this is a team that's been to many NFC championships and many Super Bowls under Kyle Shanahan.
And I told you too, look it. I'm no means gonna be, wow, congrats 49ers. I do no. But I have damn well respect for that coaching staff, what they've done. And Kyle Shanahan, they were the well coached team of the NFL.
Yeah.
Easily. Yes, sadly injuries play a big part, a lot of these things and factors. But the fact is that they still stayed there, they still stayed relevant. It didn't matter who was in the lineup, as long as number 23 was in the lineup at some sorts. Everything else was in the fold of Coach Shanahan, literally in his mixed bag, pulling people 4th round, 5th round picks, and just said, let's go and ride and let's do what we got to do to win. And they did. They did win. And I'm glad that they beat the Eagles. I'm really glad because it showed at the end of the day that Kyle Shanahan can still get it done. And by means, he's bought himself a lot more years in San Francisco. And they got to build around the people with people around them to go get back into the Super Bowl.
Yeah, as a Niner fan, I hear the Niner discourse. The Niners fan base is one of the most delusional in the entire NFL. And after last year, people were calling for Kyle Shanahan's job. And I think a good telltale sign of whether fans are delusional or not, if it comes to their head coach, is, let's say a head coach, you want your head coach to get fired. Would he be hired immediately? I think if Kyle Shanahan got fired by the 49ers, I think every single team with the head coaching vacancy, plus some teams that already have head coaches, would want Kyle Shanahan to come in and run their operation. All he's done with healthy teams is win, and now this year it wasn't even a healthy team, and he still found a way to win. Unbelievable coaching job, and unbelievable coaching job by Mike Vrabel as well. Let's dive into these other awards. We don't need to go as in depth. The graphic on screen, Offensive Rookie of the Year. You went Jackson Dart with the Giants. I went Tedoroa McMillan in Carolina. Defensive Rookie of the Year, we both were in agreement here. Right now, Carson Schlesinger, the linebacker in Cleveland, is the favorite right now. Not a standout defensive rookie year, but me and you both went Nick Eamon-Worry. I think it goes beyond what the stats show, the impact this dude had on Seattle's defense. Me and you were also in agreement for Christian McCaffrey's comeback player of the year, unless some people wanted to pull the Phillip Rivers argument, which I completely disagree with. I feel like that's pretty unanimous. And then assistant coach of the year, me and you went the two OCs of the two Super Bowl teams. I went Josh McDaniels for his role in Drake May's development, and like you mentioned earlier, not having a ton of great wide receivers, and New England's offense still doing great. You went Clint Kubiak, who took over a team with a new quarterback, an offense with a new quarterback, and they lost DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett, and they looked as good as ever, and now he looks to be the next head coach of the Las Vegas Raiders. Any of those you want to speak on in terms of your picks of Dart, Eamon-Worry, CMC, or Kubiak?
Yes, I do. For sure, Jackson Dart, but Eamon-Worry is the biggest one. Let's start with him because
Yeah, for sure.
I want to say this. This secondary, I don't even want to rate where they were last year. Credit Mike McDonald, okay, and
Yeah.
that's it. But this kid, when I saw him lock up, and again, this is the playoffs, so again, this doesn't matter. But for me in our show, it should matter because he got one of the best receivers off the release. He got one of the best receivers that's been of our generation game wise, and even in the red zone, and he locked him up. A couple times, like a good handful of times, he locked Devontae Adams up. Okay,
Yeah.
and Eamon-Worry, he's a ball hawk,
Yeah.
and that's what Seattle wants. They want someone that can hit, that can tackle fundamentally. I mean, this man on his stats, and this is what I'll say. I'll say on his tackles. This guy had 25 assist tackles, 56 combined. 56. That's disgusting off of a safety. Safety sometimes, depending on cover 2, cover 1, you're the last one on help. The fact is he didn't give much yards, and they're even saying off of much yards. Yeah, he didn't give much yards up this year. He only had one interception. I wish I would have said, okay, maybe get a couple more, but at the end of the day, he's done his job. When I see him in the backfield in the secondary, he is disgusting, man. and he literally has shown Seattle that they got somebody for the long run can head this defense with the people that they have, and we'll see what he can do against New England.
Yeah.
I think New England better be targeting this guy and seeing how they can make him mess up because he has been, and knocking on wood right now, absolutely perfect.
Yeah, he has. He was a guy that a lot of people. He came out of South Carolina and he tested unbelievably well at the combine. But I talked to you about this on one of our past episodes. There's just this like weird thing about safeties where teams aren't willing to like draft high or spend big on safeties for some reasons. But when you get a big athletic safety like Eamon Wari, it can completely transcend your defense. And I think that's what it did for Seattle this year. When you have an athletic big safety like an Eamon Wari, like a Kyle Hamilton, that's the comp I would have for Eamon Wari, is you can put them anywhere on the field. You can play them in the nickel and have them go guard a team slot receiver. You can put them at linebacker and tell them, yeah, I want you to take away their star tight end. I want you to take away their star running back out of the backfield. Why do you think Mike McDonald got him? He plays in a division with Christian McCaffrey and George Kittle and Trey McBride. So when you have an athletic safety like that who can cover CMC and those receiving backs out of the backfield, or he can cover those really elite tight ends like the McBrides of the world, it changes your defense. So I think Eamon Wari was their best move of the offseason. And in an offseason, they made a ton of good moves. And it's just props to Nick Eamon, man. He's, as a rookie, he already looks like an all-pro in my opinion. He won't be an all-pro this year, but you can sure as hell count on him being one next year. What I do want to talk about while we're on the topic of Seattle, and obviously we'll talk more about them Super Bowl week and everything, you had Clint Kubiak as your assistant coach of the year, and I want you to talk through that a little bit, and then I'll talk through Josh McDaniels, my pick, a little bit as well.
Clint Kubiak, if we're going to say KOC solved Sam Darnold, if we're going to say that,
Yeah,
then Clint Kubiak has unleashed Sam Darnold
for sure.
to a whole nother level. Where this guy, in his mastermind, I mean, he's coached teams, and I'm pretty sure. Oh no, sorry, he played. So I'm saying he played and coached for the Vikings too. So he's been around some places. Okay, he's been around some places, the Saints. But what I like about Clint Kubiak is he is just a guy that he's gonna play in his system. He's never gonna regress it. He's like guns blazing, and he's confident. And you need that in an OC. And now he's gonna be a head coach. This is the guy that's gonna change the Las Vegas Raiders. Is that a bold take? No, I think he is gonna change the Las Vegas Raiders. I think this guy right here, at 38 years old, who has a father that's been a pretty decent NFL coach, if I say so myself.
Yeah.
Okay? And at the end of the day, when you have lineage and coaches, we'll talk about Schottenheimer. We'll talk about who else? Don Shula. We'll talk about a lot of people that is lineage of coaches able to branch out by their names. Shanahan. Let's not forget Shanahan's.
Of
Okay?
course.
This difference right here has evolved. And what he's done for Seattle, he has made them disciplined, but he has made them scary. And again, he has no wide receiver too. I'm not disrespecting Cooper Kupp. Okay, no, no, no. I mean, hey, Shaheed, he's nice, but it was literally just JSN. Hopefully, they had a run game with K9 and Zach Charbonnet. But Sam Darnold, this guy brought his offense and said, I believe in number 14 and I believe in what we're going to do. And I know that sounds basic what I'm saying, but again, he really emphasizes discipline and game preparation. That's literally all what Kubiak's about. And that's a credit off of like what Kyle Shanahan's done, what these OC brilliant minds have done. And he has a lot of good mentors to help him with this. And that's why he's in the Super Bowl, and that's why he's got himself a head coaching job. Now, if he fixes Las Vegas in 2 years, like how Ben Johnson just took 1 year with Chicago, I don't know, man. I
Yeah.
think Kubiak might be that next brilliant offensive mind that might just be a difference maker in the NFL.
Yeah, for sure. You talked about Shanahan. I mean, Kubiak was the OC with or not the OC, but he was a coach under Shanahan in San Francisco. He gets the job in New Orleans. Actually, the New Orleans offense didn't look half bad there for a little bit, but the personnel was just not of the caliber of a pro offense. He comes to Seattle. It's been a seamless transition, and with Sam Darnold, a lot of what's made this team good this year has been downfield, right? And Sam Darnold's got such a good arm. It's a waste to not push the ball downfield. That was part of his success in Minnesota as well, was O'Connell was allowing him to push the ball down the field, take those deep
Yep.
shots. And we've seen that this year. And what that's done is really opened up a run game for Seattle that isn't anything like spectacular. Kenneth Walker's really come on in these last couple games, but the Charbonnet Kenneth Walker duo throughout the year wasn't like the most efficient, wasn't the most flashy running back duo, the most flashy run game in the league. But because they became such a force scheming up these shots down the field, specifically to Smith and Jigba, it opened up the run game. And then that Week 11 game happens where they play the Rams and Sam Darnold throws 4 picks. And I loved what the coaching staff did, which was the rest of the season, we're going to really lean into our run game and we're going to allow Sam Darnold to slowly build his confidence back. We're not going to put an unreasonable amount of pressure on him. So I love that. He had a really tough game against the Rams and they decided, you know what? We're going to take pressure off our guy. They started to build his confidence up, and then you saw it in the NFC Championship the way Sam Darnold was able to play in that game. So I think it's been a masterful job by Kubiak, and I agree. Mendoza plus Genty plus Bowers, if they can build that O lineup, there's a serious nucleus there in Vegas that they could build upon. It's always tough to win in an organization like the Raiders, like the Browns, like the Jets. There's just some of these organizations that just don't have the football culture, but Kubiak's a guy. He's been in San Francisco. He's been in Seattle. He's been around good football cultures, and he could instill that with the Raiders. I'll talk a little bit about Josh McDaniels. What he's done for Drake May is unbelievable, man. I mean, Drake May was a rookie last year, and it was flashes, but it wasn't like some eye-popping like, oh, year one, kind of like what Jaden Daniels was. Jaden Daniels led his team to the NFC Championship week 1, and people were like, this guy is the future. People saw Drake May, saw potential. He really reaped the benefits this year in Josh McDaniel's system. Really, really good run game
Yep.
between Henderson and Stevenson, both who play different roles. And like you mentioned earlier, there's no alpha weapons, right? Stephon Diggs is fine. Kayshon Boutte is a good deep threat. Matt Collins is a good possession receiver. Hunter Henry is a serviceable tight end. Nothing spectacular that makes your eyes go, whoa. Like their one true home run hitter is their running back Travion Henderson, who they didn't even give snaps to in the AFC Championship. And
Yep.
this offense has just moved the ball the entire season, and Drake May has just looked unbelievable. And a true testament, you can't go to the Super Bowl just on the back of one unit or just on the back of a good head coach, right? These are two offensive coordinators who coach for defensive head coaches, and the pairings have been
Yep.
unbelievable, and that's the reason they're there. Is a lot of times you can have one good coordinator and one good head coach, but there has to be a marriage between the two, and there has to be complementary football. This was an issue with Seattle last year. They had Ryan Grubb as their OC, and Grubb, the Seattle offense was fine last year, but it was these big shots, these quick possessions, this high pace of play, and that didn't work well for Mike Macdonald's defense. That keeps putting the defense on the field, it tires them out. You bring in a guy like Kubiak who's going to run the ball more, possess the ball a little more. It's been a seamless transition, and I think the same thing can be said about Josh McDaniels retaking the OC job in New England and marrying him with Mike Vrabel, who wasn't the one calling the plays for the defense, but is their defensive-minded head coach. And then, like we talked about, we don't need to get into it too much. You have Dart as your offensive rookie of the year. There were some serious flashes there. Just don't take the hits, Dart. Go out of bounds, slide,
Yep.
please, for the sake of your career. Ted McMillan, I just thought Carolina, they were a playoff team, and they didn't really, they had some flashes with some other guys, but for him to be in year 1 and really emerge as the alpha in that offense, I thought was impressive. And then there's no one to give the comeback player of the year award to besides Christian McCaffrey. I mean, the amount of touches coming off of a year where he had Achilles tendonitis in both legs, in both
Yep.
feet, and for him to have the most touches in the NFL this year, be a complete workhorse, and carry the Niners offense through every injury possible, nothing more can be said there. If you have anything to touch on with those guys, please do. If not, we'll wrap this up.
No, I just want to say, look at Jackson Dart. If he stays healthy, he's going to be dangerous. And John Harbaugh, we'll see what he's going to do with a new quarterback that is going to be coachable, that he's going to find. There's going to young talent, young team that's ready to go and make some noise in a division that's very complicated. Okay, it's not just one division that there's a lot. There's definitely contenders when they're healthy, but it's a complicated division just like the NFC West. It's complicated. The East and the West are very complicated. The North's become complicated too, but and the idea Jackson Dart has fit right in. And people have really not kind of let that sit in. Obviously, they're like, wow, this is, but it's like this guy was in shotgun majority of his whole career in college. Went from USC to Ole Miss, and what he's done with New York, even when a coaching staff changed, his coach gets fired during the
Yeah.
season. He had to go over a lot of adversity. He missed a couple games with a concussion, but the man still found a way to ball out. And yeah, I mean, he did great. He completed 63.7% of his passes, man. I mean, that's pretty impressive for a rookie. You don't really see that as much as you see with rookies. They tend to struggle. But you know what? We'll see what he does in year two because there's always that sophomore slump idea. But that's what I want to say about Jackson Dart.
Yeah, he really showed some flashes this year, and it'll be exciting to see. Obviously, new system, new head coach, get Malik Neighbors back, get Cameron Scadaboo back. Like he was operating a lot of this year without his best friend and top running back in Scadaboo, and he literally didn't get to throw a pass to Malik Neighbors the entire year,
Yep.
which was just devastating. So yeah, that's those two guys, and those are our awards. So obviously, the actual NFL honors will be a little bit later this week. This episode will come out on Wednesday morning. As for the rest of this week, Super Bowl preview, I'll be here to preview the matchup, and then me and you will be here on Sunday or Monday, and we'll be talking about that Super Bowl, and we will have a new king of the NFL right now. Seattle seem to be the consensus favorites. I have something to say about that. I'll get into that later in the week. But Zach, please promote the socials and say your goodbyes.
No, always. I mean, you know where to find me. Gametime Grech on Instagram. Appreciate you. Offsetting Penalties is just one place that's just been absolutely phenomenal, Joe. You're doing some amazing things, and success is coming both our ways. And we just got to keep working, man. And just excited to be here talking some ball with you and just enjoying it.
For sure, man. It's been a blast, and I appreciate you coming here on Mondays. It really elevates the podcast more than you could realize. For all my people out there, subscribe to the YouTube. Check us out on Spotify, Instagram, TikTok. I'll have in the description of the Spotify and the YouTube pod. I'll have Zach's Instagram on there. Go shoot him a follow. And yeah, everybody, like I say every time, if you're here till the end of the episode, you're an absolute psycho. But I love you, and we'll catch you guys later.
Peace out.